My father abandoned me on Christmas at 12 to watch a dog. Years later, he shows up begging for money. But my answer broke them, and they never saw what I did coming. I'm 25 years old. I work in digital marketing. And honestly, I've been wanting to write this for years because I need to get it out of my system. You know? What happened with my family, or what used to be my family, basically marked me in a way that I'm still processing. I guess I should start from the beginning. When I was 9 years old and my mom died. I'm not going to go into details because honestly, I don't remember much. Or maybe my brain decided to block those memories. I don't know. But what I do remember perfectly is the emptiness she left. Like someone had turned off all the lights in the house and never turned them back on. My dad, Richard, was like 38 years old when that happened, and I was his only daughter. It was just the two of us after Mom died. And for a while, maybe a year or so, things were bad. But we were a team. You know what I mean? He tried to cook weird things that never turned out right. I tried to help even though I was a kid. And basically we survived day by day. But then he met Jennifer. I think it was like a year after Mom died. Maybe a little less. I'm not sure. What I do remember is that suddenly there was this woman in our house all the time, a woman who was like 12 years younger than my dad, like 26 or 27 years old at that time, and who smiled a lot when he was around but looked at me differently when he wasn't watching. The thing is that Jennifer had a daughter, Amanda, who was already 17 when they moved in with us. And when I say they moved in, I mean they literally showed up one day with all their stuff and my dad told me, well, now we're a bigger family. Isn't that great? And I was 10 years old. I had just lost my mom. And I was supposed to be happy that two strangers were invading my house and my life. Amanda was, and I still think this to this day, one of the most spoiled and selfish people I've ever met. She was 17 but acted like she was 12, expected everything to fall from the sky, and her mom treated her like she was a princess who couldn't lift a finger. At first it was subtle, you know? Jennifer started asking me to do little things, like wash my plate after eating, which was fine. It was normal. But then it became washing all the dishes. Then washing the dishes and cleaning the kitchen. Then making my bed, making Amanda's bed, folding laundry, vacuuming, taking out the trash. By the time I was 11, I was basically the housemaid. And Amanda did absolutely nothing. Literally nothing. She'd sit on the couch watching TV while I cleaned around her, and if I asked her to move her feet so I could vacuum, she'd look at me like I'd asked her to climb Mount Everest. My dad saw all of this and said nothing. When I tried to complain, he told me I was exaggerating, that everyone in a family has to help, that Jennifer also worked and needed support. But Jennifer didn't work as much as she claimed, honestly, and Amanda definitely didn't do anything to help. It was like living in an alternate reality, where I was the only one who saw how unfair everything was, but nobody else noticed or cared. The moment that really marked me, the one that still makes me furious when I think about it, was when I was 12 years old. It was Christmas. Well, Christmas vacation. And my dad decided that the whole family was going on a beach trip for 2 weeks. Sounds good, right? Except when I say the whole family, I mean my dad, Jennifer, and Amanda. I stayed home, alone. A 2-year-old girl, alone in the house for 2 weeks during Christmas vacation because someone had to take care of Bailey, Amanda's dog. And when I say take care, I don't just mean giving him food and water. I mean walking him 3 times a day, cleaning when he had accidents inside, because Amanda never trained him properly, playing with him so he wouldn't get bored. Everything. They left me money for food and a list of instructions about the dog, and they went off to enjoy the beach while I spent Christmas alone in an empty house with a dog that wasn't even mine. Can you believe it? To this day, when I tell people this, they have to process for a moment because it seems impossible that someone would leave a 2-year-old girl alone at Christmas to watch a dog. But that's what happened. I remember spending Christmas morning watching movies alone, eating cereal because I didn't know how to cook anything elaborate, and trying not to think about my mom because I knew that if I started crying, I wouldn't be able to stop. Bailey at least kept me company. I guess, though he also constantly reminded me why I was alone. When they came back from their trip, everyone was tanned and happy, telling stories about the beach and the restaurants where they ate, and Jennifer asked me if Bailey had been good, as if that was the only thing that mattered. They didn't even ask me how I'd spent Christmas. If I'd been okay, if I'd needed anything, nothing. It was as if my existence only mattered in terms of how useful I was to them. But there was a ray of light in all this, and it was my Aunt Laura, my mom's sister, and my cousin Marcus. They came to visit me right after my dad and the others got back from the trip, like 2 or 3 days later, and when they saw how I was living, when I told them they'd left me alone at Christmas, my aunt's face was pure horror. She tried to talk to my dad, told him that what was happening wasn't right, that I was a child and needed to be treated as such, not as a servant. My dad told her not to meddle in his family, that things were fine, that I was exaggerating. But from that day on, my Aunt Laura made sure to be more present in my life. She called often, came to visit when she could, and Marcus, who was like 4 years older than me, started being like the older brother I never had. The following years were more of the same, basically. Each year that passed, Jennifer found more things for me to do, and Amanda continued being the princess who couldn't do anything for herself. When I was 14, I tried to confront my dad again. I told him it wasn't fair that I did everything in the house while Amanda did nothing, that I also had school homework and wanted to have time for my things. You know what he told me? He told me, "Life's not fair, you just have to deal with it." Those exact words. Life's not fair, you just have to deal with it. As if that was an acceptable answer to give your 4-year-old daughter who's basically being exploited in her own house. I think something broke in me that day. Not dramatically. It wasn't like in the movies where there's a moment of revelation and everything changes. But it was like a part of me decided that I wasn't going to wait anymore for my dad to protect or defend me, because clearly he wasn't going to. I started spending more time outside the house, at the library, after school, at friends' houses when I could, with my Aunt Laura on weekends when they let me go. Jennifer complained that I was never home to help, and my dad told me I was being selfish, but honestly, I didn't care that much anymore what they thought. When I was 16, Marcus told me something that changed my perspective on everything. We were at his house. I think it was summer. And I was telling him about my week like it was normal. Like, oh yeah, I cleaned the whole house on Saturday, did everyone's laundry, cooked 3 meals, the usual. And he stopped me dead and said, "You realize none of that is normal, right? You realize the way they treat you isn't okay." And I sat there processing those words because part of me knew he was right, but another part had normalized the situation so much that I no longer knew what was normal and what wasn't. Marcus made me see that what I was living through was abuse, even if not the kind that makes the news. It was emotional neglect and exploitation, and that I deserved better. From that moment, I started planning my exit. I focused obsessively on my grades, on my extracurricular activities, on everything I could put on my college application. My Aunt Laura helped me with the applications, took me to visit campuses when my dad said he was too busy, paid for my admission tests. And when I was 18, I received a full scholarship to a university that was like 5 hours away. Full scholarship, I mean tuition, housing, food, everything. It was literally my ticket out, and I took it without thinking twice. The day I left for college, my dad helped me pack the car, but it felt more like an obligation than a father saying goodbye to his daughter. Jennifer stayed inside watching TV, didn't even come out to say goodbye. Amanda was in her room, probably sleeping, even though it was already 11 inches the morning. And I got in that car with my stuff and felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. I didn't cry. I didn't look back. I just left. College was amazing. Honestly, for the first time in my life, I only had to worry about myself. Nobody was asking me to clean up their mess. Nobody treated me like my only value was how useful I was. I made friends, joined clubs, worked part-time to have my own money even though the scholarship covered almost everything. I went back home only for Thanksgiving my first year, and it was so awkward that I decided I wouldn't go back anymore. The following holidays I spent with my Aunt Laura or with friends, and my dad barely noticed or didn't care. But then, when I was in my second year of college, Amanda messaged me. We hadn't talked in months, like since I'd left. And suddenly, she writes to me like we were best friends asking me for a favor. Turns out she was in college too. A local, not very prestigious university, but college nonetheless. And she needed me to write her essays because she was too busy with other things. And when I say essays, I mean all of her essays for the semester. She wanted me to literally do her academic work for her. I told her no. Directly. No beating around the bush. I told her I wasn't going to do that. That it was cheating and she needed to do her own work. She got angry, sent me like 10 messages telling me I was selfish, that family helps each other, that it was just some essays and it wasn't a big deal. I blocked her. But 2 days later, Jennifer called me yelling on the phone, saying, I was a terrible sister. We were never sisters, by the way, but that's another topic. That Amanda needed me and I was turning my back on the family. I told her I was sorry, but I wasn't going to cheat for Amanda, and I hung up. Then my dad called me. With that disappointed tone I knew so well, telling me that it was just some essays. Why did I have to be so difficult? That Amanda really needed help. I told him the same thing I told Jennifer and ended the call. I thought that would be the end of it. But no. Like 6 months later, my dad and Jennifer showed up at my university without warning, asked me to meet them for coffee, and like an idiot, I accepted, thinking maybe they wanted to fix things or something. We sat down at this cafe near campus. They ordered expensive drinks and pastries, and then they dropped the real reason for their visit. They wanted money. Well, not exactly money for them, but for Amanda. Turns out Amanda had failed half her classes, was in danger of losing her spot at the university, and needed to pay for summer classes to catch up. And since I had a scholarship and worked part-time, they assumed I had extra money to give them. I sat there processing the absolute audacity of what they were asking me. These people who had treated me like a servant for years, who had left me alone at Christmas to watch a dog, who had never protected or defended me, now wanted me to give them my money, the money I earned working night shifts at the university library, to pay for Amanda's classes because she had been too lazy or irresponsible to keep her grades up, and they said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like I owed them something. I told them no. My dad started with the family speech, that family supports each other, and I finally exploded. I told them everything I had kept inside for years. I told them they had treated me like garbage, that they never cared about me, that they only saw me as someone useful, that they left me alone at Christmas when I was a child, that they made me feel like I had no value beyond how well I could clean the house or take care of Amanda's stupid dog. I told them I owed them nothing, that they weren't my family, that my family was my Aunt Laura and Marcus, the people who actually cared about me. And I got up and left. I left them sitting there in that cafe with their expensive drinks and their shocked faces because apparently they never expected me to tell them the truth. My dad tried to call me several times after that, but I didn't answer. Then he sent me a long message saying that Amanda had dropped out of college, that she had student debt, that things were difficult for them. He asked me to reconsider, to help, tell them financially because he was my father and I owed him respect. I responded only once, telling him that the relationship between a father and his daughter goes both ways, that he hadn't respected me for years, and that I wasn't going to give them a penny. I blocked his number after that. That was like 3 years ago. I graduated from college a year ago with honors, got an amazing job in digital marketing, and I'm living my best life. Honestly, I have a small apartment, but it's mine. I have friends who are like my chosen family, and I keep regular contact with my Aunt Laura and Marcus. They came to my graduation, helped me move into my first apartment, celebrated every achievement with me. That's family. Not what I had during those years with my dad, Jennifer, and Amanda. Do I feel bad sometimes? Yes. I guess. Not about Jennifer or Amanda, honestly, but about my dad. Because he was my dad. You know? And part of me. That small part that's still the 9-year-old girl who just lost her mom, wishes he had been different. That he had protected me. That he had seen what was happening and done something about it. But he chose his new family over me. And that's a decision he has to live with, not me. Last week, my Aunt Laura told me that my dad asked about me, that he wanted to know how I was. She told him I was fine and left the conversation there. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully forgive him, or if I even want to try. For now, I'm okay with the distance. I'm building my own life, surrounding myself with people who truly value me, and that's enough. More than enough. Honestly.